Hi everyone. Hey babies. What's up? How you doing? Happy Friday. What's happening? What's happening?
Was that open? That's
I don't know. I
man.
don't know. Summer. Summer's kicking in, Callow. Big time kicking in today.
Fried summer brain like I do over here.
Fried summer brain. I'm gonna take a few days off next week over July 4th. That'll be good. I'm gonna take a few more days before training camp. Then I'll get back into locked in brain. But right now, totally fried summer brain.
Yeah,
Totally fried.
I'm right there with you. Right there with you.
Yeah. I did hear it's not 800 degrees outside though today, so that's good.
Yeah,
Right?
you know
That's
the
good. Yeah.
the one day I don't have to run. Yeah, it's
All
great.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's self-imposed. Don't have to run. That's self-imposed.
Well, I'm on a training plan, so I
Hmm.
don't run on Friday mornings. So that's part of the deal right now.
I'm going to get into all the football in a second, but I will say this. I got a lot of TV on my slate, so I am happy about that for Summer Brain. Squid Game Part 3 comes out tonight. The Bear Season 4 just came out, and I've been watching a show called Mobland, which has a tremendous cast. Tom Hardy, Pierce Brosnan, Helen Mirren. Helen Mirren, who plays a psychopath. And it's about like a drug gang mafia of London. And it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Guy Ritchie directed this. It's a little repetitive. You don't actually see them do the gangland stuff except against one another, but it's pretty good. Pretty good. Good acting.
What platform is that?
Paramount Plus, but I'm watching it through Prime. They're all
Got it.
somehow integrated now, right?
Right.
They're like, I don't even they're not even separate anymore. They're all, I'm watching something on a separate service through a different service. I'm confused now.
It's like cable.
Yeah.
I did I didn't mean to do this last night, but I did. I think I'm 5 episodes into the Bear. I like binged 5 of them in a row. Yeah, I went pretty hard last night.
You good?
They're it's better than last year. I'll give you that. I think we were both a little underwhelmed by last year, even though I appreciated the storytelling. This gets more back to like season 1 Bear feeling for me. It's still not quite there, but there is a crescendo that you're going to enjoy is what I will say on that. Like they're building up to something and there's a countdown and you'll see. Like I'm not spoiling anything, but they're basically on the race for something and you'll see. And the there's a little more Carmy this time around, and like the crash out is real with him, and I'm enjoying seeing that again because I don't think there was enough of that last year as well.
So yeah, last year they lost their way. The first 2 seasons were amazing. Last year they lost their way. So I'm glad to hear that this is back a little bit on track.
Yeah, what I'll say too is like I thought last year I appreciated all of the other storylines. There was not enough Carmy last year. That's what I thought. Like because remember we kind of bitched about it last year where the end of season 2, the whole thing with him and Claire happened, and he like was on the phone, and they didn't really address that. Like
they never really addressed it. Yeah, they just kind of left it. They were like, "Well, they're broken up." Like that was really kind of it. Yeah.
Right. So just saying on that front as well. Like you'll see.
All right, I got a lot of TV to watch this weekend. All right, let's see. I was going through the list for the NFL of free agents that are actually still available, and the list is actually relatively long. Not at quarterback. If you needed one of those, you're at SOL if you're in that situation. But outside of that, there are a lot of prominent names, and there were a couple specifically that I wanted to bring up that I hadn't really been thinking about too much, and I don't think is actually happening. But an old friend of ours is still available, and we don't necessarily need a guard, except that I don't know when Sam Cosby's going to come back. And I was surprised that Brandon Sheriff has not signed with anybody yet. And is he the player he was 4 or 5 years ago? Probably not. Why is he not on a roster right now? I don't know. I need to kind of look into it a little bit and see. But that was a surprising name when I was going through the list of who's available out there, because there are a few positions I want to talk about. Outside of like edge rusher, which we all still think like is very possible that they could go after and probably sign somebody before training camp. But there are a few other positions that I think are notable to look at. And Sheriff being available, knowing that Cosme is probably not back day 1, I don't know. I was just surprised that someone, at least who used to be of that really high level, isn't on a roster right now.
Yeah, I mean, does he want to play football? I asked that question with him.
That's a good question.
Because I think you and I, like, we kind of joked about it, but he went to Jacksonville so he could get a house in the swamp somewhere and, live in the middle of nowhere, essentially. Does he want to leave, Florida? I don't know. That's a question that I'll ask here, because that seems to be kind of, for me, at least, what the conclusion I'm drawing is. Does he want to play anywhere? Because I bet you if he did want to play anywhere, somebody would sign him. Or does he have a list of places where he wants to play? And if those places aren't calling, he's fine with sitting out. Like, I feel like that's what we're at here, because linemen like him get signed somewhere. Like, even as a backup, get signed to be put on the roster.
I don't picture him or really anybody like that being signed here now. But knowing that Cosme isn't going to be ready for the start of camp, and I'm expecting him not to be playing in week 1, and he'll come back when he comes back, that's a heck of a bridge, or a heck of a, but again, you'd only want to sign him to a 1-year deal. Does he want something more than that? You might be right. Where does he want to go? Does he want other swampland places? Who knows? How bad does he want to play? I agree. All those things. He's one of those guys where I go, okay, he probably didn't sign with anybody because he didn't want to be in anybody's offseason program. He doesn't feel like he needs to be in anybody's offseason program. So I don't know. It was just an interesting name that popped up, and I went, I haven't thought about that they need to get another offensive lineman. I actually think I like what they've got going on here. I want to see what happens with the first-round pick to see if he's fast-tracking to start or not. If not, I do think they have a very good backup plan with Wiley, even if it's in the short term. We'll see how right guard plays out, but I'm not worried because Cosme is coming back. It's not like he's not. He is. I'm not worried. And I like the left side of the line now. I actually really like the left side of the line now. But considering there is a bridge, this is a very big year. He's available. I don't know. The name piqued my interest, especially knowing, where he started his career and how good he was here. I don't know. If he's got a little juice left in him, wants to play on a team that might contend, he's totally cool with, you're going to start the beginning of the season and we'll see how long you actually play and you're a backup then, which might be, I don't know, attractive to him too. I don't know. I just saw his name pop up and I went, that's interesting.
No, I was going to say, if you say to him, hey, we need you for 4 to 8 games, depending on when Cosme comes back. And then guess what? You get to be a backup in an insurance role with us. If you want to go that route, we'll take you. The other thing here is, we know what happens here. No offensive line stays healthy through 17 games anymore. So you'd be telling them, hey, we might need you on the other side if, Coleman gets banged up or something like that. So I'd be happy to bring in another veteran like that, as long as he doesn't cost too much, which I assume he wouldn't because he's not on another team, unless he's already talking to another team and he's just going to sign the first day of training camp or something.
Yeah, he's waiting. What is he waiting for? Right? That. He's one of those where I go, he just doesn't want to be in the offseason program at this stage of his career. I don't blame him. What numbers is he looking for? Is it beyond a 1-year deal or is it just a 1-year deal? Probably is just a 1-year deal. At what price point? But I don't know. We have a lot of cap room left. So that's what was interesting to me. All right. Another one. I'm not saying this because I'm worried about Terry, but I am saying that there are receivers that are really extremely viable that are available. And in fact, you're going to be surprised how many names are actually still available right now, including Amari Cooper, who is much older now, but still can play and still has speed. And he's one of those, probably similar to the Sheriff thing, probably didn't want to be part of somebody's off-season program, which is why he's not signed with anybody yet. That'd be my guess. Again, he's a rental player. This team also has a lot of veterans on it. They're going to be vying for things, but more not on Terry, but more on Noah Brown's injury, which has never been disclosed, right? We don't know what's going on, whether it's serious or not. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Someone asked me the other night, what was his injury? And I go, the team is not compelled to tell anybody what's going on, so they don't have to. So I don't know. I said I was there that day and I saw it. And when it happened, it was inadvertent and it didn't even look like, it wasn't a football hit. It didn't look like a big collision type of thing. So it actually made me a little bit more worried that it wasn't a, full on typical, it was an inadvertent, thing that occurred. and off of what happened to him last year. And I kind of pictured him being the number 3, if you will, this time around. I don't know. There was a list of names of receivers that are just kind of out there still. I know they have a lot of veterans on this team, but listen to the names that are available. Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, Gabe Davis, Nelson Aguilar, Tyler Boyd, DJ Chark, Kadarius Toney to a obvious lesser degree, right? Because there's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
And Odell Beckham's on the list too. But again, similarly, injuries, there's a lot going on there. He hasn't been really effective since, he was a rental on that Super Bowl season team. So, but that's a number of, what does Keenan Allen have left? I don't know. He's like borderline Hall of Fame player. Gabe Davis, I'm surprised. Like nobody has surprised he didn't go back to Buffalo, honestly, but I'm surprised that he's available. DJ Chark's a veteran receiver. I'm surprised. And Cooper, who used to be an extremely high-end receiver, is available. So combined with Terry's situation, Noah Brown's uncertainty, and the fact that they do have a lot of competition here, but this is just another player that I don't know. I'm watching this list now all of a sudden. I think partially because of just what's going on with Terry, and partially because I'm surprised at the quality of the players that are still available right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at Cooper, I think more than any other wide receiver on that list, he was a deadline trade last year, right? Like he was moved for assets, to Buffalo last year. So, I mean, I look at him and think he probably also is doing the whole, as you just said, I don't want to be part of an off-season program and wants to sign with somebody. What I will say is this: with that quality available, I actually look at Adam Peters to make the move like he did last year at the end of training camps when somebody gets cut inevitably, right? Like, I thought that's where that was one of his best moves last year, right? Where he signed Noah Brown after the Texans got rid of him, or I don't think he claimed him on waivers. I think he did sign him outright, if I remember correctly.
He did.
Either way, it was a end of training camp, end of preseason move that ended up being really good for them. Brown, I think his first game was that Giants game in week 2. So I actually look at it more as if those are the type of quality players that are available as free agency, I wonder who Peters has his eye on in case someone gets cut at the end of camp. So I actually don't really look at it as a move before training camp. I kind of see what's he going to do at the end of training camp and preseason if those are the names available there. Because I think what's going to happen here is someone inevitably gets cut. You get them at an even cheaper rate than those guys, right? Like way cheaper rate, depending on who it is. I kind of look at it from that lens, maybe not a move right now, though.
The Cooper and Keenan Allen not on a roster right now is a surprise. Really, that's a surprise. Those are high level players. One of them is a borderline Hall of Famer. Like that is really, I know they're older now and I know their careers are coming to an end, but to not even be on a roster right now is, and maybe those guys want we don't want to be in a competition with some young dude. We want to know we're going to make the team if we're going to sign with you. And in Washington, in those, even if they were interested in them, I would assume they could guarantee they would make the roster, but be the number 2, 3. I don't know actually on this team. So I think it'd be interesting to see how it plays out with them.
I'm surprised either one of those guys isn't on the Patriots. Like the Patriots still need a little bit of wide receiver help, I feel.
Yeah.
And I, especially off of what happened with Stephon Diggs,
I'm surprised the Chiefs aren't interested in these guys. They're always looking for help at wide receiver just to give a weapon to Mahomes. How's Amari Cooper not on that team?
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't know. All right. The big one is still this one, which is edge rushers, defensive ends. Washington, in my opinion, still needs one. They're talking like they don't. They feel good about what they have. But here's the list of players that are still available right now. Matthew Judon, Zadarius Smith, Jadeveon Clowney, Von Miller, Shaq Barrett's a little bit of a different situation, Preston Smith, Jihad Ward, Carl Lawson, older now, James Smith-Williams used to play here, but just the top of the list again. Matt Judon, Zadarius Smith, Jadeveon Clowney, Von Miller, older now, Preston Smith. All of them are still available right now, which is why I keep feeling like I felt for months. I'm like, there's just no way that they're going to go into training camp without getting someone who fills this type of role. And they may not be out on the field all the time, but they're going to become a specialist for them and be part of packages for them. And I still, like, even after they tried to convince me last month with the, all the things, we're going to be better on defense, run and pass. You're going to see us get all this production. You didn't think Dante Fowler would have this much. The whole you guys didn't think this. We did it anyway. And I'm like, I'll hear you on that. And I agree with you on some of it. You still need talent and you still need people to play certain roles. Those are the players available. I haven't heard any of them specifically earmarked to coming here, but, I will be surprised if one of those names isn't here when training camp starts.
It's really funny. The top of both of these lists, Amari Cooper on wide receivers and then Zadarius Smith on edge rushers. They were both traded at the deadline last year and yet don't get signed anywhere. I think that's a little just weird in my opinion. Same thing. It could be that they don't want to be a part of offseason programs, but clearly good enough though that teams wanted them last year and yet don't want to sign them is still a little bit odd here. I will say this, and I constantly say it. Von Miller has like some legal things that I don't think we're touching him.
He's older now too. He's had a lot of injuries. He's older. He's a big name, and he could probably still play. But I'd be surprised, like if he's the one that they went after. Zadarius Smith, maybe Matthew Judon, maybe Jadeveon Clowney. Like those names feel more likely to me.
If this team were to go out and sign Brandon Sheriff and Preston Smith, Jay Gruden would have all the interviews in the world. So I'm just pointing that out because if you're bringing the band back together from circa 2018, 17, whatever it was, that'd be a little ridiculous.
I mean, like of all the things I've talked about, like I could they use another, higher tier receiver? I would argue it, sure, but does Amari Cooper want to come here and find out, that he's in a real actual competition, which I think I would assume he'd win. That's the number 4 receiver. I would assume he would win that, but I don't know. I don't know. Like where does he want to go? Brandon Sheriff just being available to me would be a luxury if he would show up and be here as probably a starter for the first, 4 to 8 weeks, and then a primary backup. And then we'll see if there's an injury. Now all of a sudden you have a player like this. He'd be a luxury to me. Defensive end's different. I still feel like they need one. Like they could prove me wrong on that and go out there with the group that they have and get the production done they say they're going to get done. I just think they're missing a specialist. And I'm not saying break the bank or go do whatever to do it, but these guys are literally available. So I don't know. I feel like something's going to happen there.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like they've got to add at least one veteran, or maybe you do the old, like I think I talked about this a couple months ago, where you do the old swap, where if we have a position that there might be a little bit of a log jam and you do the old veteran swap or the late round pick swap to get somebody else in here. I could see them doing that as well. Like I could see that. I also I'll go back to, I don't put it past Adam Peters to find someone off the scrap heap at the end of preseason. He did a really good job last year, not just with wide receiver, but other positions as well. In that first month of the season, kind of retooling the roster. I know it's more of a need. It's not the same as it was last year, but I wouldn't put it past them to try to do that again.
It's rare that a defensive end or a tackle gets cut. Those are the positions that typically have to be dealt with earlier because most teams they'll trade somebody like that. They won't, because those are always in need, primary high paid positions. Like they don't typically cut anybody like that, but we'll see. The last one was this cornerbacks. Like there are a good amount of cornerbacks that are still available. The biggest name is Asante Samuel Jr. is available. Stephon Gilmore, who they didn't want last year, is older now, is available. Rasul Douglas is available. Jack Jones is a really interesting one. He got cut, never signed with anybody. He looked the part for real a couple years ago when the Raiders defense kind of turned the corner and they were really competitive, remember, down the stretch of the season. And then last year it went sideways on him and they made the changes and Jones ended up getting cut by this new coaching staff front office. He hasn't been signed with anybody yet. Again, not unlike offensive line, they don't really, if you look at the list, need a corner unless you think, that Marshawn Lattimore isn't going to be able to, play 18 weeks. And if that's the case, then you could make an argument they do. And so Samuel feels unlikely because I would assume he's looking for probably a good amount of money and probably some term. I don't know. At this point, I don't know whether he would get it or not, but that's probably what he's looking for. Jack Jones is a very interesting name to me. Like when he first got cut, he's still pretty young. And I'm like, a couple of years ago, he looked pretty good. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what happened there. Clearly things unraveled, but that's an interesting name. And not unlike receiver, I would just go with Terry's status still kind of up in the air. Noah Brown's injury is unknown. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's serious or not. I don't know. The receiver list piqued my interest a little differently, this time around than it did, I don't know, a month or two ago. Corner, like similarly, I don't know that we quote unquote need one, but as insurance policies, if you had a pretty good corner who's just available, I don't know. Call me interested about that. There's just a lot of names across the board that I was still surprised to see that were available.
Cornerback to me this year is wide receiver from last year. Like, I think the unit can get the job done. If they need to tweak something, let's see what emerges in training camp and in preseason, if there's any problem. I think they have all of the pieces here. Maybe they add one of those pieces at the end. They're not one that I want to – they're like, I don't care if they do add one before training camp, fine. They're one, though, that I circle as they're going to see if this unit can get it done in preseason. And if they do think there's a concern, they'll add somebody like they did last year with Noah Brown, right? Like in the wide receiver group. I think that would be the move for cornerback. I like this. I like them as a unit right now. Like, I think if someone struggles, we're going to see an ad at the end of all of it.
Yeah. The only thing that's hanging for me is Lattimore's health and like reliability of playing. Yep. It isn't even about him. Like, I know he had a bad run, last year when he got here and started playing. He was playing hurt. And so I'm willing to not wipe the slate clean, but not be as concerned about his overall play. I want to make sure he's going to be healthy. It's really his availability more than anything. And that's the hanging thing with me on him. And that's why I'm kind of like, I'll judge him by the middle of next year if he's available and playing anything close like he used to. And more than anything, just being on the field and being available to them and not playing hurt, that would be the sign to me that everything will be fine with him.
I think with Lattimore, too, they helped alleviate a little bit of pressure from him. Like, if they didn't make the moves they did, drafting someone high, making a signing here and there, I think everyone's going, we need him to be a stud for this defense to, to be really, really good or at least hold itself together. They actually made enough moves in the cornerback room that we need like 75% of the Lattimore that was in the Saints. And I think everyone would take that with the way that this unit has been revamped. So I think they also did him a favor too of revamping that unit a little bit more and not having it all be on him, right? To be that number one corner. I think the way that they've gone and set this up is they're pretty much saying to him, go be healthy and be good. We're not asking you to be great every single play here. We think we've got a good enough team around you. So I think some of the pressure has been alleviated from him as well.
Yeah. Some of these guys, some of these names might be waiting for, the invariable unlucky team that gets an early camp injury. And hopefully that, hopefully I never want that to be us. So hopefully that won't happen to us. But like, that could be some of it, that a couple of the players are going, someone's going to go down in some practice or at a preseason game or at a joint practice. Something's going to happen. And when that happens, the need changes, the money changes, they're going to want them. So I think some of these players, like probably Sheriff, probably Amari Cooper, people like that are probably going, I'm going to wait, see what happens. But it was an interesting number of options at a variety of different position points where I think we can all agree this is not a complete roster here. There are a couple of other spots like tight end and running back where I didn't really see names like, do you like Gus Edwards? In this offense, I don't know that I do, but he is available, right? He's been very productive in the past. The tight ends didn't seem like an upgrade, and I think they're probably going, let's just run it back one more year with this group. I don't feel like this different need, but corner and receiver, which I feel pretty good at, assuming Terry resigns or, they make him happy, whatever it is, I feel pretty good about. It's just insurance policies more than anything. And the guard situation just felt like a real insurance policy and almost a luxury if you were to go get somebody like that right now.
I think when you bring up tight end and you bring up wide receiver too, I think this is something where, Quinn and Kingsbury and even Adam Peters, of course, putting the roster together. I think they want to give those two groups a chance for some of the young guys to emerge, right? Like you and I have talked about Ben Sinnott. Like, I think they need to
year
see
for him.
they need to see something from him. And I
Yeah.
think they're careful not to bury him on the depth chart in advance, right? I think it's kind of the same thing with wide receiver. I think they like their wide receivers, but they want to give Luke McCaffrey a chance. They want to give Lane a legitimate chance here. You're right. Amari Cooper would beat both of those guys out. I think there's a little, right. Yes. And I think there's a little bit of, let's see what these guys can do with some, more practice reps, some reps in general, and not bury them in terms of what they've drafted. I think those are just the two units that I would say they're giving the young guys a chance. Is all.
I don't see options available at tight end that I would be like, okay, bring that person in. Like, they actually have a couple of under the radar competition this summer and insurance policies. They have a couple of like professional pass catching tight ends in Tyree Jackson and Lawrence Cager. Nobody's talked about them. They've been around the league. They know how to play. And they're the ones that are likely not to make the roster unless there's an injury or unless there's a surprise, because Bates is a lock, Ertz is a lock, Sidditt's a lock. That's three, right? Who's the fourth? They like this guy, Colson Yankoff. They think that there's a future with him. I don't think they want to stunt his growth. They like him on special teams. So that's four, right? But they have these veterans that are sitting down there. I don't see anybody that's worth going after there. Running back will be interesting if someone surprisingly is somewhat available, just because I think we've all thought that an upgrade at the position in the room is something that would be wanted by the team, I think. But like, there has to be the right people. You're only subject to what your options are. I don't look at Gus Edwards and go, okay, that's the answer to go get someone like that. I don't see that. You might be right at receiver with McCaffrey. I know that like they name checked him. He said he's had a great offseason. I guess you don't want to bury him, but at the same time, this team thinks they can win the Super Bowl. I think you build up the roster as best you can on short terms, and that's what you do. And so if Amari Cooper wants to come here and play here at a reasonable rate, I don't think you don't bring him in because you're afraid Luke McCaffrey gets disappointed by it. Like, I just don't think you do something like that.
No, and what I would say, though, is this all is only going to happen over the course of preseason, right? Like, I think what's going to happen is they're going to find out pretty quick who is going to start emerging here and who's not once they actually start practicing against other teams and get into some of this preseason action. And how much do he and Jaden have chemistry-wise, I think it's just something to monitor. I think they want to give them the chance here. I'm with you, like, make the signing to make your roster better. But at the same time, we also have talked about it. They want to try to get some guys that are actually going to be here beyond this year. So you want to see who those guys will end up being as well, because they've also got a wide receiver on the roster, Deebo Samuel, that is only on a one-year deal. And if one or both of those guys emerge as well as being options, well, they kind of know the plan moving forward. So I would say not burying them behind an Amari Cooper is an option here. And same thing. I look at wide receivers we did last year, as I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, where Adam Peters can grab someone at the end of preseason and probably plug them into this roster and they'll be okay. I have all the faith of the world that he would find someone, even if it's not an Amari Cooper type, essentially.
All right, let me take a quick break. Bram wants to show ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. The story of the NBA over the last couple of days is the guy who apparently wanted to go to Washington or a couple of other select places, Ace Bailey, who went 5th in the draft to Utah, even though it's now been reported by ESPN and one of their reporters that his agent literally told, we don't know who, but somebody in the top 5, and it wouldn't be the top 2 because the top 2 were set. Cooper Flagg was going to Dallas. Dylan Harper was going to San Antonio. That was not arguable. So I don't think his agent had to say it to either one of them. You're not taking my guy, but either Philadelphia or Utah or somebody was told, don't take my client. He looked like he was in shock that he got picked by them. And most importantly, he notably did not show up yesterday in Utah. And the reporters, I think, have done a good job. Well, not the screamers, but the reporters have done a very good job going, look, let's stay medium about this for a second. On Monday, Utah starts a summer league camp. He is expected to be there for that. If he doesn't show up to that, then we can have a different conversation about this. And maybe we could speculate that he's not particularly happy about being selected by them, but they've got 72 hours to talk him off of this career ledge that he's stuck there. They like him. They don't want to move him. and he's just going to have to show up and play for them, whether he likes it or not. And in the end, he may like being a member of the Utah Jazz. Give it a chance. And I saw Brian Windhorst say this about him too, where he said, this is Danny Ainge and his son. They've been around the block for a long time. And his quote was, they're not going to get pushed around by anybody. So you could sit there and whine and cry or threaten, whatever you try to do to pull whatever lever. And the threat would be, my guy's not showing up and he will not play for you. Trade him, or he's going to sit out and go back to the draft, which is the nuclear option of what he could do. But I'm making a big deal of this because we all know that it seems to me that he wanted to be picked by the Wizards and missed it by one spot and is now stuck in a place he doesn't want to be. So there's two parts of this. Why does he want to come to the Wizards? And two, which is a very important question. Two, did he already mess up his career, which is very, very possible by what he's doing right now if he does not show up in 3 days, because he's really, really, really playing with fire right now.
I would say on messing up his career, I'd say no, because if he can hoop, no one's going to remember this. Like, people are going to bring it up, but if he can actually play and be a superstar in the league, this becomes a blip on the radar.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Eli Manning refused to go to the Chargers. No one talks about that anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can play, no one cares. What I would say, though, is this, and this is where I think some people have started to get into the larger discussion here now. This is now 2 major drafts in a row. We've had a major name try to angle themselves somewhere else, and everyone is kind of bringing it back to this NIL era, right? Like, you had Shador in the NFL draft tank interviews and tell people out loud he didn't want to go to certain places. Dion said, we don't want him going to certain places.
Right.
A year before he got drafted, he was saying he only wanted to go to 3 different places. Remember that? Like, where they had a list of teams or something like that? And the NFL went, no, not on our watch. And they dropped him to the 5th freaking round, essentially, right? Here's another one in the NBA where you had a top 5 pick. And in the NBA, those draft picks are worth exponentially more than NFL draft picks, especially at the top of that draft, right? And this guy was going, I don't want to go to any of these places. I want to go to Washington. Someone called his bluff. And look, he could not show up, and the Jazz just own his rights. Right. I don't know what he would do. Would he go overseas or something like that?
His literal recourse is to not show up and not play. They own his rights, and then it would basically toll for a year, and that's not viable.
Right.
If you do that, that's what I'm saying. You're ruining your career if you do that.
Correct. No, I'd agree. I'd agree with you on that front. But I think what's happening here now is like, the trickle-down effect of NIL is these players are used to getting what they want at age 16, 17. And now when they come out at 18, 19, 20 in both of these sports, they're going, well, I've gotten my way, everything up until right now. And then when they go into a professional league, they expect it to be the same way. And you and I know the jump from college to pros, you don't get your way ever. Like, you are now at the behest of billionaires, essentially. I think this is the first case we've really had this in the NBA where someone truly did not want to go somewhere, and Danny Ainge and his kid called his bluff here. I don't know what the end game is. I also think, if you're a team like the Wizards, right, you've already had the press conference of drafting Trey Johnson and giving him all of his praise, and he's already spoken to the media, etc. Like, do you want to backtrack on all that and trade Trey Johnson now?
Like him, I don't think you're moving him now. I actually think if the move is if Bailey still wants to come here and Washington is still interested in him, which are 2 open questions. But if that's the case, I think you're trading something else. I don't actually think you're trading the guy you just drafted. I don't think that's happening at all.
Exactly. Like, if I'm the Wizards now, I think you've got a little bit of leverage, because if you want to just let Bailey rot, you can do that. But you could call him up and say, you want a top 3 protected pick, something like that, like where, hey, we're not going to be good next year, but if it's a lottery pick, we want that pick, So I think that's maybe an option there for the Wizards, but I just think we're in an odd predicament here where welcome to NIL land, where now it's starting to carry over into pro sports, not just in college.
Yeah. I will say this, because it's not 2 years in a row. Bailey never said who he wanted to go to, but all the reporting is he wanted to go to Washington or New Orleans or somebody else. And it was another one that hadn't won anything in a long time. which is something I want to talk about in a minute. But the second year in a row now, Alex Sarr did not want to go to Atlanta, ended up going to Washington. It was less of a big deal than this one because they were like, well, he's the number 1 or number 2 pick. He's going to go either way. It's not like he's falling to 10 or in this case, falling to 5, as Bailey did when everyone said he would have gone 3 if he wasn't making a mess of the process. And the 76ers, they'll never admit whether they were just like told, don't pick my guy, which is, think about that for a second. He doesn't, if this is all true, doesn't want to go to a place where he'd play with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey and Paul George, and would rather go to a team that hasn't won anything and has no stars on it. Would rather do that. In
today's NBA, though, like first-round picks that get buried on the bench almost never bounce back, though. So, like, on that team, he's the 5th option. So,
the number 3 overall pick, though, like, you don't use the number 3 overall pick and never play the guy. Like, that's like, what?
You don't know what kind of minutes he's going to get. Like, would he be buried on the depth chart? That happens all the time with first-round picks. Like, I'm with you. I would, like, if you want to win a ring, that probably would have been a good spot. But at the same time, he's going, I'm going to get 30 minutes a night on the Wizards, and I'll be able to do what I want. Like, I think some of these guys are looking at this differently.
Well, I think this is the question, and this is because this team basically isn't covered anymore. Okay, like there's very little resources that are going to it, right? And Monumental does a good job covering their own team, but they're covering their own team, and listen, I'm not going to complain about it. It is what it is with what that team and the state that they're in and the way that they're covered, so like, it just is what it is. The outside independent reporting, the national outlets aren't paying any attention to them, i.e. during the draft, I think it went to commercial break 3 times when their pick was on the board. Stephen A just made fun of them for an hour. I even saw Bob Myers at one point go, hey man, this is supposed to be a positive night. Like, relax on killing everybody all the time. Like, this is new hope, new hype. You're bringing a new life. Teams are excited about, like, what they know where they are, but they're excited about the new players they're bringing in. Like give them some due. Like, stop screaming it's so awful all the time. But there's no coverage. There's no real coverage of them. Like, you'd have to go watch, or go into like major deep dive NBA shows to really learn anything about this. But this is 2 years in a row that prominent players, we know one definitively did it. He's on the team now, Alex Sarr, and because he did not want to be the number 1 pick, he wanted to be the number 2 pick, to go to the Wizards, not to the Hawks, who also hadn't won anything. And secondarily, we think, if this is true, Ace Bailey got himself close enough to where he actually wanted to get to. He was surprised by the team that ended up taking him. That's why they're having this come to Jesus moment, to try to figure out, do you want to play in the NBA or not this year? Because we're not getting rid of you and we chose you. But he wanted to go, if this is true, to Washington. I'd love to know what it is, because this is actually, of all the things we make fun of, this is a really good sign that these young players are actually trying to direct themselves here. But there's no reason for it. This team hasn't won anything, doesn't have a team that's on the verge of winning anything. Like, this is a really interesting development that's going on right now, that they are, quote unquote, recruiting well with these young players as they head into drafts.
I think the come to Jesus moment is going to be next year, when basically they're going to have that $100 million of cap space. You've been great at doing this with 18, 19, 20-year-olds. Will you be able to get someone that can actually be added to this team and be competitive next year? I think that's where we're going to find out.
They have all this money. What are they going to do with it, though? Because it doesn't seem like they're going to go after the 29-year-old star who's going to make $60 million a year, because that's not the timeline, and that's not what they're building. They're trying to go the Thunder route of building up a team that's all 22-year-olds, and eventually when they're 25, they're good. Like, that's what they're trying to do.
Here's the thing that's going to happen next year. Like, the way that this whole, and really like what the buzzword has been over the last week in the NBA, has been this second apron thing, where teams are trying to get under this tax, essentially, so they're not paying, like the Celtics are paying $500 million for their roster because they're really, really good.
There's a reason why there's more parity in the NBA right now. It's because they got structured this cap thing this way, where teams are saying, I'm not paying that if I'm not winning a championship. And so they're siphoning off players. Yeah.
Right. And so what's going to happen, though, is next year, you're going to get players that are going to be up for extensions that some teams are going, I don't want that $180 million extension to really cost me $320 million with the apron. Well, guess where they're going to maneuver to be traded to? Here, whether they like it or not. So I think we're going to be in a scenario here where the Wizards are just going to say, you don't have to like our organization, but guess who's open to give out some of these extensions? I think that's where we've landed here.
It's, you don't have to like us, except in one way. We can give you a lot of money.
I mean, look at the way that the league is going right now. I don't think if you actually look at some of the trades that have happened here in the last year or so, outside of the Luka trade, which still is, I'm still tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist on. Look at what some of the moves that are made are. Trades are happening between everybody now. So I'm just saying the Wizards are going to be the belle of the ball next year of guys going, get me there first before someone else picks up that extension. I actually think we could get multiple guys that want to come here to get that extension because other teams aren't going to be willing to do it. Yeah. Now, what's given up in these trades, I don't know, because I know this regime, they're not interested in giving up their lottery picks, right? So that's where I've actually kind of had the hang up here is, what are they giving up? Because they're not going to be good enough to go sign whoever the guy that's about to be a free agent and compete at the same time. So this is a little bit about the timelines as well, unless they're going to put together a super team overnight next year, which I guess crazier things have happened in the NBA.
Yeah, it's very interesting what it's just this 2 years in a row at the draft. The high level talent is trying to get here.
Yeah.
So they're doing something right, and maybe it's wide open for someone to show up and be a star here. That's part of it. And the money part on the other side, well, that doesn't affect them. That doesn't affect these draftees for 4 years. That only affects the guys on the secondary side. And you can't project out what a team's going to look like 4 years from now. You don't know what they're going to have done with their cap space. So you could sit there and tell, come here, you're going to be the star and we're going to pay you, blah, 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 blah. And then 2 years later, they're like, whoops, Giannis was available and we had the money and we got him.
Right.
You don't know what's going to happen.
The other side of all of this too is like, free agency's dead. Like no one gets just signed anymore, right? Like the biggest move last offseason was what? Like Klay Thompson to Dallas. I think that was it. Just because Golden State didn't really want to re-sign him. And same thing, this apron thing was a factor in that. Yes. They didn't want to keep paying a bunch of money.
They were paying a crazy amount of money for a team that they were finally admitting they'd gotten everything they could get out of it. And it hurt, but they had to move on.
Right. And so you can actually look at the Wizards here too. Like, the Wizards have done this. We didn't really think Kuzma was going to be a part of the future, but they did go ahead and re-sign him knowing they were going to trade him eventually. And then they trade him to Milwaukee. Same thing with Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole had 2 years left on his deal. I didn't really think Jordan Poole was a part of the future, but we all knew he was worth something. So everyone is starting to do this now where there's really no true free agency. So clearing the decks and at least having that cap space, somebody's going to go and take the bait eventually, even if you're the Wizards, bruh, or not. That's what I'm getting at here at the end of the day.
I agree. All right, let me take a quick break. Bram wants to show ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, last quick topic of the week. Very quickly, this is heating up. Connor McDavid has
told you this off the air.
Yes. Connor McDavid, the star of the Oilers, been in the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row, on the wrong side of the result 2 years in a row, has 1 year left on a contract that he signed. He is the best player in the game. And if he does not sign an extension with the Oilers now, it is logical to believe that there's just no chance they're going to let him get to free agency next year, and they're going to have to trade him. And I think the trade offers would be enormous for him. And I think the people of Edmonton will riot if they do it. But if they do this the right way, which is we are offering him a long-term, largest contract in the history of the NFL. If he chooses not to take it, you cannot blame us. We're going to try. We want him to stay. We want to build the team around him. We want to keep trying to win with him. But if he doesn't take our money, what are we going to do? And I think the line's going to be out the door. But this team here has been very aggressive. They are turning the page. And I don't know how they would not be in on this in a big, big, big way. I think a lot of teams will, but I don't know how they would not be making that call and offering something huge to get him here. You want to transition to the future? He's it. He is it.
You talk about a lot of young prospects that are available too with this team now. They've reloaded. They made a trade yesterday, which I thought was actually baffling. I'm not going to get into that, but they have a ton of young prospects. They have names that if you're Edmonton, you want to revamp the farm system a little bit and get some draft picks. This team, they absolutely could do that for you. I think the Caps would be in on this. They realistically probably don't have as much to offer as some other teams, but if I'm Ted and you're looking for life after Ovechkin, literally couldn't be better than going to Connor McDavid. What I will say is this feels to me like a thing where Edmonton is going to start the season with McDavid, and then this is going to ramp up into the trade deadline. That you will, if he doesn't sign, like you have to have this discussion. You have to asset manage here. It'll be a rental, but it'll be probably the most expensive rental in a very, very long time when it comes with McDavid. And I've kind of said this, I think I said this to you off the air when we were discussing it earlier this week. If you're McDavid, you're the best player in the game. And no offense, and I hate doing this, but like you're playing in Edmonton. Your star power is not what it could be. Not to reference Gretzky, but what it could be in LA, in Pittsburgh, here in Washington. Honestly, you throw Florida out there. That would be a crazy move if somehow the Panthers could make it happen. I don't think they will because they're going to be giving up too much money. But another premier franchise that isn't Edmonton, I swear, like his stock would go way up. He would get way more advertisements. He would get way more endorsement deals. Honestly, not even the only team in Canada. If the Maple Leafs could somehow pull this off, he'd be the biggest star in the league. I think it matters where you play sometimes. And Edmonton is just not that franchise. And, the biggest contract ever in NHL history still might not get it done because it is Edmonton. Now, hockey players are different. He could sign that deal and go, I'm fine here. And I wouldn't be surprised. But at the same time, you'd be a fool not to test the market to just see how high of a deal that he could get.
He's kind of all but said that he's like, he said all the right things. I like it here. I love it here, but I have to look at all my options. And that always reads to me like, okay, it's time to start having the preliminary conversations with the Oilers. What would you want if you cannot get a deal done with this guy?
And what's unfortunate is if you're the Oilers, you're going, dude, we got to the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row. How much more do we have to prove to you?
Right.
Which I hear their argument out because you talk about Crosby and Ovechkin, constant competition. Those two were never in danger of leaving their respective franchises. It feels like it's inevitable with McDavid, though, that Edmonton doesn't have an upper hand here because of the organization that they are.
That's right. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. Talk to you on Monday. Bram wants to show ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.